Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Comrade. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative.
Waiting order. Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting order.
Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Awaiting order.
Unit
Acknowledge.
ready.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes,
Unit
sir.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes,
lost.
sir.
Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledged.
Insufficient.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Reporting.
lost.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledge.
lost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Waiting order.
Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Heavy tanks keep coming.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Reporting.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Acknowledge.
Waiting order. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
Building.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. 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 Acknowledge.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Silos
Acknowledge.
needed.
Acknowledge.
Vehicle report. Acknowledge. 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 Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Awaiting orders.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Building.
Awaiting.
Acknowledge.
Yes, sir. Reporting.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Comrade. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Waiting order.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledge.
Comrade. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledge.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
Unit lost. Silos needed.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Acknowledge.
Silos needed.
Ready and waiting. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative.
Silos needed.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledge.
lost. Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Acknowledge.
Silos needed.
Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Silos needed. Building.
Ready and waiting.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Ready and waiting. Acknowledge.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative.
Unit
Waiting.
ready.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Waiting order. Acknowledge.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
Mission saved.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Waiting
Affirmative.
order. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Comrade. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Mission saved.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Reporting.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Good, I found some.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle report.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Yes, sir.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledge. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting.
Lost.
Very well. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative. Ready
Unit
and waiting.
lost.
Vehicle report. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Unit
sir.
lost.
At once. Yes, sir. At once.